We are talking about online citizenry, the role of bloggers in society and politics. Let me ask the politician. Responsible behavior online. Is it ever possible? Or how would you define responsibility online as offline?
I think it's got to evolve to what we have today. I think on the offline space where there's certain social norms. I think there's certain social norms. I think there's certain community norms and there's certain community rights. Some space today, I think it's a little new. I think it's sort of like a wild, wild west out there. So it probably has to come to a stage where today we have the sites doing self-moderation, but at the same time, there has to be certain sensible behavior and from the bloggers or from commentators for that matter. And to some extent, I think it will take a couple of years to evolve, and I think I hope not too much more. And
Sorry, Carol, do you think this is realistic though to expect the online community to have a self-moderated stand? And is this even the role that the online community want to play, to be moderated?
Okay, I think we have to talk about when the government wants to engage. Okay, online citizenry. When we talk about engagement, it has to be a two-way dialogue, correct? And which also means there has to be room for people to express your views. Sometimes you may not want to hear certain views that are expressed, but I would think that a more voluntary form of community moderation may be the way to go. Community moderation may be the way to go from the government.
But Alex, that whole thing about community and bloggers wanting to self-moderate just fell flat on its face.
No, it didn't. It didn't fall flat on its face. I mean, I think where we get off on the wrong track is when we assume some kind of a structure on top of bloggers and netizens and commentators. I don't think that is what Zaki was referring to. We are referring to a certain set of behavior that gradually comes together by different individuals with influence over together, by different individuals with influence over. And I think, yes, give it time, it will develop. Just as when we walk down the streets, most people are responsible and socially observant, but there will always be those nutcases on our streets, right?
So there will be nutcases online too.
Yes, and there will be, and we'll learn to live with it. We'll learn to dismiss their views because people will see them for what they are.
And honestly, without sounding too pedantic, that's when you talk about the importance of education. Educating people of the consequences of the kind of online content they post. Consequences not just to the society at large, but consequences to themselves. Right? And then you have to educate people who consume the content, okay, to be able to discern from what is truthful, what is salacious, what is well-substantiated arguments. And now with most consumers also becoming producers, education has to be more multifaceted.
But having said that, I think the mainstream sites do have a role to play. I mean, for example, when they announced the demise of Richard Stanley from DBS, for example, there were plenty of insensitive comments out there. He deserved it and so forth. But and I think that mainstream sites should moderate such comments because these are totally insensitive and out of social norms. You wouldn't say that in the offline world, for example. I think when the Singh Han Tong's case came out as well, it was also the same. So to some extent, I think there needs to be certain moderation, but it's got to be community-driven rather than top-down.
I'm sure I mean there will be a lot of extreme views online. Partly is also because anonymity, right?
Yes.
And I think that we will work towards a situation where I think that we will find a happy medium. I'm sure. I don't like the word education because education means authority talking down. But let me ask Alex this question. You are, as you say, a political commentator online, right?
Yes.
When you write, do you think about responsibility? Do you think about if I say this, it will affect somebody's character, some consequences, or do you just go in there?
All the time, the time. I think most of us who write will always ask ourselves, what is the impact? I mean, you write yourself, don't you, Baji? We ask ourselves, do people understand me? Will people misunderstand this sentence? Have I qualified it enough? And so on and so forth. And I think on the one hand, you don't want to pull your punches too much. You really do want to make a point. On the other hand, you tell yourself, I just make exactly the point that I want to make and not let there be other insinuations or innuendo or that kind of thing.
Would you then also take, let's say, an official view into account to kind of balance your your so-called sharp views?
I don't intend to be the Straits Times.
It shouldn't be, I think.
Yeah, I think there is a role for media, whether online or offline, to be neutral and try to be objective. But there's also a role, a very important role, for media to take sides, to expound a certain point of view. Of course, granting the freedom for the other side to expound their view at the same time.
Can I just follow up this? I think he has gone on to a very good point. So, have you ever taken a stand pro-government?
Yes.
When you think that the government has done a good job?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I mean,
As an example?
I think I have defended the government in terms of its general economic direction and our Singapore's openness to foreign talent. And I know these are quite unpopular views.
Zaki, just let me ask you, because I want to pick up from something Alex said earlier. In terms of reach then, and its role that you think it can play, I mean, Alex talked about traditional media taking a point, taking a view. What then would you expect reach to do, to engage, and what role would it play? I mean, going ahead as GPC chairperson and as a member of the P65 generation.
Personally, I don't think reach should be at the center of a subject where you force the government to take a side. I don't think it should play that role. But where reach should be is be the center of discussion, where you're able to solicit feedback, gather views from the members of the public. At the same time, I think gives an opportunity for the government to take on board these comments and say, hey, do we want to step in because this is dividing the society, for example, or this is a contentious issue that that will have consequences on the nation, for example. So I think, to a certain sense, I should take opportunity from the attention that it has today, and expand into various issues and take a more proactive approach. If I may even say so, move into areas where you could get solicit feedback from prominent bloggers, influencers out there in the market, as well as some of the mainstream sites where there's plenty of activity.
But Zaki, I think one of the realities of Singapore is that there's a section of our population that basically have dismissed the government.
Sure.
All right, they basically reject. They just think there's no use.
Unfortunately, they write like that online as well.
Yes, and they will not participate in reach. They will participate in their own channels. And for the government to say we only look at reach is to ignore a significant portion of public opinion.
Sorry, I did not ask for reach to put its presence out there, but really to be able to go out there, look at some of these comments, get the feedback, as well as perhaps even make a response if necessary, but not to put its presence out there.
All right, thank you, Zaki, Carol and Alex. That's all the time we have for this evening. I'm sure the debate in cyberspace and on the role of the online world will continue.
And how these different voices add to debate and politics and society. We'd like to hear from you. Email us at talkingpoint@channelnewsasia.com. Join us again next Sunday when we take on another hot button issue. Good night.
Good night.